They told you to fear demons, revolutions, even death itself. But what if the greatest fear of the elites was never any of those? What if their true terror is a hidden force, an inverted light, burning silently in the abyss? This is the Black Sun, a symbol dismissed as myth, yet feared as a code of liberation, a power that dissolves illusions and strips away the masks of empire. For centuries, priests and rulers twisted its meaning, burying it under fear and superstition. They knew the truth. Once a person awakens to the occult symbolism of the Black Sun, they no longer bow to crowns or crosses. They see through lies, through control, through every false light imposed upon them. And that realization spreads like wildfire, something no empire can contain. Here's the paradox. The Black Sun is painted as evil, yet it carries esoteric knowledge of transformation, a force of death and rebirth. It is not destruction for its own sake, but the fire that clears away illusion. This is what terrifies elites most. Not that people might fear it, but that they might embrace it. Because once you do, no system of control can enslave you again. So stay with me, because in this journey we will uncover why elites fear the Black Sun, why they hide its occult secrets, and what it means for your own path of spiritual awakening. And if you want to keep walking deeper into this hidden knowledge, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss what comes next. They say the true terror of empires isn't rebellion, nor famine, nor even war. What if the greatest fear of the elites has always been a hidden sun, an inverted light blazing from within the void? This is the Black Sun, more than a myth, more than a symbol. It is an ancient code of liberation. For centuries, whispers of this occult symbolism have unsettled kings, priests, and secret rulers. Why? Because its radiance cannot be bought, taxed, or controlled. It offers a door to forbidden gnosis, and once someone walks through, they never look at power the same way again. To the elites, such hidden knowledge is more dangerous than any revolution. Imagine the comfort of those who hold authority. Laws bend to them, money obeys them, entire nations bow to their will. Yet there exists a force that laughs at all their empires. The Black Sun, meaning, is liberation from imposed order, an alchemy that burns illusions and exposes the truth. Those who dare to study its esoteric knowledge discover that the cages of society were never locked. This is why the elites panic when the symbol rises in the mind of the seeker. It threatens not only their wealth, but the entire machinery of control, and so they label it heresy, madness, or darkness itself, hiding the truth under layers of fear. This fear isn't irrational. The dark alchemy of the Black Sun strips away every false mask. Think of it as a mirror that shows you not what you want to see, but what has always been hidden behind the polished smile. Many run from that reflection, but some embrace it, realizing that the occult secrets encoded in the symbol are not curses but tools of transformation. It is like peeling away the skin of deception to reveal the skeleton of reality. And if ordinary men can access this power, the elites know they cannot keep their thrones built on illusion. That is the seed of their dread. Consider how religions and states thrive. They depend on blind faith, unquestioned obedience, cycles of fear and hope. The Black Sun occult breaks these cycles, teaching that truth lies within, in what alchemists once called the inner sun. Those who awaken to this esoteric truth begin to see through dogmas, to question the very foundations of society. History shows us again and again, when people find light inside the darkness, empires tremble, because power loses its grip once the masses realize they were never powerless. The occult powers of the hidden sun are not chains, but keys. And yet, how do you explain this to someone conditioned by centuries of elite conspiracies? They've been trained to see the Black Sun as evil, as a sign of chaos. But chaos, in the alchemical sense, is creation in disguise. Just as night fertilizes the soil for dawn, the alchemy of darkness prepares the spirit for rebirth. Those who grasp this truth undergo a spiritual awakening, discovering that destruction is not the end, but the beginning of something untouchable. The elites fear this because it means people could stop kneeling before their artificial suns, those false lights of economy, media, and dogma. The symbol's mystery lingers like an echo. Some call it a void, others a star behind the star. But every seeker who approaches it speaks of the same essence. It is both terrifying and liberating. The mystical symbolism of the black sun teaches that power comes not from domination, but from surrender to truth. You may have noticed how every great teacher, from shamans to philosophers, hinted at this esoteric philosophy in different words. They understood the paradox, that light is born inside darkness, that death hides the seed of life, and when the veil falls, nothing imposed from outside can enslave you again. It makes sense, then, why secret societies across time guarded this knowledge with fire and blood. They used secret rituals, sigils, and coded myths to keep the black sun hidden from the masses, while carefully studying its force themselves. Not all of them sought domination. Some truly sought spiritual initiation to master the metaphysical secrets hidden in its glow. But the elites at large, they could not allow its wisdom to flow freely. Imagine billions waking up, realizing that their power structures were fragile shadows all along. That's why the black sun remains buried in myths, waiting for those bold enough to follow its call. And here is where the first traces of its history begin to whisper. Legends scattered across the world carry whispers of a hidden sun that was never meant to shine in the sky, but deep within the soul. Norse sagas spoke of Sol-Niger, a shadowed star that devoured false light and revealed what lies beyond illusion. In alchemical manuscripts, this same presence was encoded in the stage of nigredo, the blackening that precedes rebirth. To the untrained, it looked like decay. To the initiated, it was alchemy transformation in motion. And then came the 20th century, where occult secrets were twisted by totalitarian regimes who hunted for subterranean suns beneath mountains, hoping to weaponize forbidden knowledge. History tells us this wasn't superstition, it was obsession. The idea of a sun beneath the earth sounds absurd at first, but think about it. Ancient people were never describing astronomy alone. They spoke of occult symbolism hidden in the cycles of life and death. The black sun meaning was clear to those who could read the codes. It marked the point where reality dissolves, where appearances collapse. Shamans entered caves to seek its glow. Mystics descended into darkness for visions, and secret cults painted black discs on their temple walls. To them, it wasn't just an image, it was a doorway to esoteric truth. What terrified rulers then still terrifies them now. The black sun does not recognize thrones. In Egypt, the journey of Ra through the underworld hinted at this same force, a sun traveling beneath the surface, conquering serpents of chaos. The Mayans spoke of suns that died and were reborn in cycles of cosmic destruction. Everywhere, the motif repeats, an inner sun hidden beneath, guiding initiates through symbolic death. These were not just stories for entertainment, they were maps for transformation, encoded so that only those ready for spiritual initiation could grasp them. And every time humanity got too close to this hidden knowledge, elites stepped in to bury it under dogma or war. Take the example of medieval alchemists. They drew black discs in their texts, surrounding them with serpents, dragons, or ouroboros. These weren't decorations. They marked the alchemy of darkness, the point where metals and men had to dissolve before new life emerged. Reading these manuscripts today, you can almost feel the fear of those who tried to silence them. The Inquisition branded such works as heresy, knowing that behind the symbols lay occult teachings that could set people free from control. That's why books burned, not because they were nonsense, but because they were dangerous. Then, centuries later, the elite conspiracies of Nazi occultism revealed a darker twist. They carved the black sun into the floor of Wewelsburg Castle, surrounding it with rituals meant to bend occult powers toward domination. They misunderstood the symbol, thinking they could harness it for empire. But the esoteric philosophy of the black sun was never about conquest. It was about transformation. Their failure proves a deeper truth. Misuse of forbidden gnosis does not yield freedom, only ruin. And yet their obsession shows how threatening this archetype remained to those in power. If you look closer, you'll see the same pattern across civilizations. Rulers demonize the black sun while secretly trying to own it. This duality, fear and fascination, is what defines their relationship with occult mysteries. They want its strength but not its freedom. They seek its fire but not its truth, because truth would expose their secret societies for what they are, parasites feeding on borrowed light. It is no wonder that over and over, myths of the hidden sun vanish into silence, only to re-emerge centuries later. The symbol refuses to die. And so we return to the question, why does this shadowed star keep rising across cultures as if calling humanity back to itself? The answer lies not only in stories but in processes of the soul. The Black Sun is more than history. It is initiation encoded in myth. Those who approached it in antiquity weren't chasing fantasy. They were chasing metaphysical secrets that still pulse beneath the surface. And what they discovered leads us naturally to the next revelation. The strange union of darkness and light that defines the very heart of alchemy itself. Alchemy has always been misunderstood as the crude attempt to turn lead into gold, but the wise know it was never just about metals. At its heart lies the alchemy of darkness, where matter dies so spirit can be reborn. The Black Sun represents this hidden crucible, a force that dissolves illusions, burns away the ego, and prepares the soul for its higher state. This is why alchemists described dark alchemy as the most feared stage, the nigredo, the blackening. It was not a curse, but a gift, the stripping of false identities. And in that void, the esoteric truth begins to shine. Picture it, a seeker sitting in silence, life collapsing around them, dreams turning to ash. This is what nigredo feels like in the human heart. And yet, hidden within that ash glows the inner sun, the same occult symbolism encoded in the Black Sun. Those who surrender to this fire discover strength beyond comprehension. It is not the strength of armies, but the power to walk free of manipulation. No wonder the elites despise this symbol. Their authority depends on people never learning how to transmute pain into power. For them, forbidden knowledge must remain forbidden. The union of opposites has always terrified rigid systems, darkness merging with light, death birthing life. These ideas dissolve the black and white thinking that empires rely upon. The alchemy transformation hidden in the Black Sun shows that truth is not linear. It is paradox. By embracing both shadow and radiance, the seeker achieves balance. Imagine if millions realized that suffering itself can become fuel for growth. Entire structures of fear and obedience would collapse. That's why elite conspiracies frame the Black Sun as destructive, when in truth it is transformative. Examples of this process appear everywhere. In Jungian psychology, the shadow must be integrated before wholeness is possible. In spiritual traditions, death is followed by resurrection, winter by spring. The Black Sun meaning is woven through these cycles as the silent engine of renewal. Anyone who has faced despair and emerged stronger has lived this alchemy, whether they knew it or not. And once a person sees that even darkness has purpose, the grip of external authority weakens. That realization is the true occult power the elites fear most. It's also why secret teachings compared the Black Sun to a furnace. Metals endure fire to emerge refined. Humans endure trials to awaken. In practical life, this can mean turning personal crises into breakthroughs, losing a job, only to find a calling, facing heartbreak, only to discover inner resilience. These are not accidents, they are occult mysteries unfolding in ordinary disguise. And those who understand this process begin to live differently, guided not by fear but by esoteric philosophy that whispers, even this pain has meaning. But such transformation demands courage. Few willingly walk into the darkness, and fewer still remain long enough to see the hidden symbols that guide the way. Yet history remembers those who did, mystics, shamans, alchemists who faced annihilation and returned with forbidden gnosis. Their writings were warnings and invitations, proof that one can survive the fire. To the elites, however, these figures were threats, voices declaring that true sovereignty lies within, not in crowns or pulpits. Silencing them became a matter of survival for the ruling class, and so the Black Sun remains misunderstood, painted as demonic or dangerous, when in truth it is a teacher. It shows that even in collapse there is creation, even in death there is rebirth. This is why initiates whispered of its mystical symbolism with awe. For those who endure, the reward is clarity, freedom, and unshakable strength. But if the Black Sun is the furnace of transformation, then the question arises, could it also be a source of energy, one that terrifies elites not only for its philosophy, but for its raw, untamed power? Mystics across ages hinted that the Black Sun is not only a symbol, but also a force, a cosmic engine hidden behind the veil of perception. They spoke of it as inverted light, not shining outward but imploding inward, fueling creation from the void. Imagine a star that burns without consuming, a paradox of infinite energy. The ancients understood that this wasn't metaphor alone. It was a description of occult powers beyond comprehension. And while science dismissed such ideas, secret societies clung to them, exploring ways to tap this forbidden current. For the elites, this is a nightmare, a source of power outside their system of control. Consider how civilization has been built on external suns: fire, coal, oil, nuclear light. Every empire depended on who controlled the flame, but the hidden sun was different. It could not be mined, taxed, or patented. The occult symbolism behind it suggested that energy flows from the spirit itself, bypassing rulers. Alchemists spoke of it as the fire within matter, yogis described it as inner sun, and mystics saw it as the reservoir of divine potential. Whoever unlocked this current would no longer bow to kings or priests. That alone explains why elites fear it. Even modern echoes exist. Think of Nikola Tesla, who dreamed of free energy, power broadcast through the air itself. His visions, ridiculed or buried, mirror the idea of the black sun's endless supply. Was he tapping into forbidden knowledge without naming it? The pattern repeats. Those who discover untamed sources of power are silenced. This isn't just about technology, it's about spiritual sovereignty. Because if humanity realized that the black sun occult energy could be awakened within, the old systems of scarcity and dependence would collapse overnight. Some mystics describe the black sun as both creator and destroyer. It can nourish, but it can also burn. That duality reflects the danger of misusing dark alchemy. Imagine giving infinite energy to an unbalanced soul. It could uplift or devastate. That's why ancient initiations demanded purification before revelation. The seeker had to prove worthy before touching the mystical symbolism of this power. Elites, however, sought shortcuts. They tried to bend the current through secret rituals, hoping to weaponize what should only be awakened through transformation. History shows the results were always ruin, but the deeper truth is that this energy cannot be monopolized. Unlike oil wells or solar panels, the esoteric truth of the black sun emerges from within. It is unlocked through spiritual initiation, through the death of ego and the rebirth of the soul. That's why alchemists insisted that the real furnace was the human heart. And this is also why rulers tremble at the thought, because once awakened, no authority can dim that flame. It answers not to governments nor corporations, but to cosmic law itself. This is the paradox. The elites want power without surrender, control without sacrifice, but the esoteric philosophy of the black sun demands the opposite. You cannot access its current without dying symbolically, without letting go of the false self. That is why they both chase and fear it, why they hide its traces while secretly yearning to possess it. Their entire empire of control is built on keeping people from realizing they carry a cosmic mystery inside them, a generator no chains can bind, and still, seekers continue to awaken. Which leads to a deeper contrast. If the outer sun sustains empires, what happens when humanity turns toward the inner one? If energy of the soul fuels liberation, then the elite's borrowed light begins to fade. This is where the symbol takes a dangerous turn, because the black sun not only liberates, it exposes the parasitic systems feeding on humanity. And here, we arrive at the next revelation: how the ruling class has always built their power on the false light of an external sun, hiding the inner one from view. Every empire rises beneath the glow of the outer sun. Calendars, harvests, religions, and even economies have been chained to its cycle. The elites built their dominance on this predictable rhythm, crafting systems where time itself served their interests. But behind the visible orb lies the black sun, the inner sun that belongs not to empires but to souls. And that is precisely what terrifies them, a light they cannot schedule, tax, or use for manipulation. The occult symbolism here is clear. There are two suns, one external that enslaves, and one internal that liberates. Think about how society functions. Every clock, paycheck, and ritual bends around the external sun. From 9-to-5 jobs to religious holidays, everything is tethered to its predictable path. Yet the hidden sun shines in silence, waiting to be discovered by those who seek esoteric knowledge. This duality exposes the parasitic nature of power. The elites feed on the outer sun, keeping humanity orbiting illusions while burying the truth of the occult mysteries that teach us to draw strength from within. They fear the black sun, meaning because it unplugs humanity from their system. In practice, this parasitism shows up everywhere. Think of how industries profit from scarcity: oil, electricity, medicine, even belief systems, all of it designed to keep you reaching outward for light instead of inward. But the forbidden gnosis of the black sun teaches that true energy, physical, spiritual, emotional, springs from the alchemy of darkness within. That's why mystics could survive in deserts or caves, while empires collapsed outside their doors. They tapped into a current the elites could never steal, and that's why rulers branded them heretics or madmen. This divide between outer and inner suns also shapes culture. The outer sun sustains appearances, rituals, hierarchies, spectacles. The inner sun dissolves them, revealing what is eternal. Elites thrive on keeping humanity distracted by the outer glow, while ensuring few discover the occult secrets of the hidden one. This is why secret societies split into two groups: those who use the black sun to dominate, and those who protect it as a path of liberation. Both know its esoteric truth, but their intentions diverge. And the masses, they are kept blind, told to worship only the external light. Examples are everywhere if you look closely. Religious institutions demand obedience to dogmas tied to the solar calendar, while discouraging direct contact with the divine. Economies tie human worth to hours worked beneath the outer sun, as though time itself were a currency. Yet those who undergo spiritual initiation into the black sun step outside this matrix. They realize that their value is not dictated by systems, but by the inner sun shining through them. This realization shatters illusions, leaving the elites powerless to exploit their subjects further. The irony is that elites secretly acknowledge this duality. Their secret rituals often mimic the death and rebirth cycle of the black sun, though stripped of its liberating essence. They want the fire without the freedom, the symbol without the surrender. But the esoteric philosophy of the hidden sun doesn't bend to greed. It demands annihilation of the false self before illumination. This is why their attempts always backfire, why their parasitism sustains their empires but never grants them sovereignty. They drink the outer sun, but starve from within. And so, humanity stands caught between two lights, one imposed, one forgotten. The parasitic sun rules over bodies, while the hidden sun whispers to souls. To walk the path of the black sun is to reclaim sovereignty, to unshackle from cycles of dependency. But this path is not gentle. It requires walking into death itself, as countless initiates have done, which leads us naturally to the next veil. The black sun not just as symbol or energy, but as initiation into the deepest mysteries of transformation. To the uninitiated, the black sun is just a terrifying symbol painted in shadow and fire. But to mystics, shamans and alchemists, it was the gate of passage, the moment of death before rebirth. Walking into its glow meant facing the annihilation of the ego, the collapse of every illusion. This was the heart of spiritual initiation, to die symbolically so that the inner sun could awaken. It's no wonder that rulers feared such rites. Once a person has tasted this esoteric truth, no chains of church or crown can bind them again. The occult symbolism was dangerous because it worked. Initiates described the black sun as a furnace where the soul was burned clean. Imagine standing in darkness until every mask you wore dissolved, leaving only essence. This wasn't poetry. It was a lived experience. From Siberian shamans to Egyptian priests, from Gnostic sects to medieval alchemists, the initiation pattern repeats: descent, dissolution, illumination. And each time, the elite stepped in to suppress it, branding it heresy. They could not allow the masses to discover that forbidden knowledge was not in temples or scriptures, but within their own being. One can see echoes of this in myths of the underworld: Orpheus, Christ, Odin, all figures who entered darkness and returned with light. These stories weren't accidents. They were encoded maps of initiation. The mystical symbolism of the black sun explained why death was never the end. It was transformation. To live this process meant losing fear, and that terrified those who governed through fear. After all, a population that no longer dreads death cannot be manipulated by promises of heaven or threats of hell. That is the essence of occult secrets elites bury. Examples in daily life still reflect this. Consider someone who loses everything: wealth, job, reputation, and emerges wiser, freer. That collapse is their personal black sun initiation. The fire strips them bare, but in the ashes they find strength that cannot be bought. This is alchemy transformation disguised as tragedy, and once they see it, they can no longer be controlled in the same way. That's why throughout history, initiation schools thrived in secret. They knew the esoteric knowledge was too potent to hand over to empires hungry for domination. The process is not without danger. Shamans warned that those who enter the Black Sun without guidance risk madness or destruction. That is why initiation was carefully staged, supported by elders or teachers. The seeker had to be prepared for the collapse of everything they thought they were. Elites twisted this into propaganda, claiming the Black Sun devours souls. But the esoteric philosophy shows the opposite. It liberates by killing only what is false. It is death with a hidden mercy, fire with a hidden light. Secret orders built elaborate rituals around this passage. Some used fasting, others used sacred plants, others silence in caves or tombs. The method mattered less than the pattern: descent into shadow, confrontation, and return with hidden knowledge. Those who returned became different beings, no longer enslaved to systems of control. Their eyes saw through illusion, their hearts burned with the occult powers of truth, and the elites knew that even a few awakened individuals could inspire revolutions of the spirit. This is why the Black Sun remains both feared and revered. It is the threshold every seeker must cross, but which every ruler must suppress. For initiation produces sovereignty, and sovereignty dissolves obedience. Yet initiation is not the end. It is the beginning of confrontation with forces beyond human design. Because once the initiate passes through the fire, they encounter something else waiting in the shadows. Entities that dwell beyond the eclipse, guardians and devourers alike. To awaken the Black Sun is not like lighting a candle. It is like igniting a storm within. Those who step into its furnace emerge either shattered or transformed. Some lose themselves in the abyss, their minds unable to withstand the collapse of every illusion. Others rise with clarity so sharp it cuts through the veils of the world. This is why the elites brand the Black Sun as madness. They fear that ordinary people might realize that forbidden knowledge is dangerous, not because it kills, but because it liberates. And once liberated, a soul can never be enslaved again. The risks are real. Ancient texts warned of seekers who went blind, insane, or broken after trying to confront the occult mysteries unprepared. This wasn't superstition. It was recognition that ego resists annihilation with violence. The alchemy of darkness demands everything. If you cling to your masks, the fire tears them away. Yet if you surrender, the Black Sun becomes a teacher, reshaping you with hidden symbols no empire can erase. It is this double edge, destruction or rebirth, that makes the symbol so feared, so misunderstood. Imagine modern parallels. A person who loses everything, career, wealth, even identity, often collapses into despair. But sometimes, that collapse becomes liberation. They see through lies that once ruled their lives. They step into a freedom no paycheck or title could ever give. That is the esoteric truth of the Black Sun at work, even if unnamed. It shows that awakening carries both peril and promise. The elites fear this because a population that knows how to turn ruin into power cannot be manipulated by scarcity or shame. Those who survive the fire speak of a strange gift, unshakable sovereignty. It's not arrogance, but a quiet certainty that no external force holds ultimate authority. This is what spiritual initiation was always meant to produce. The awakened one sees elite conspiracies for what they are, illusions maintained by fear, and in seeing them, their power crumbles. Imagine if millions endured the Black Sun's fire and emerged with this vision. That possibility alone explains why empires demonize the symbol with such desperation. But there is another danger: exile. Those who awaken often find themselves estranged from ordinary life. Friends may not understand, families may fear them, societies may cast them out. Carrying the Black Sun occult within can feel isolating, like walking with a secret too heavy to share. Yet this is part of the initiation, the loneliness of truth. Many mystics lived as wanderers or hermits, misunderstood but unbroken. Their isolation was not punishment, but proof of their difference. The elites hoped this solitude would silence them, but their teachings survived. What fascinates is how resilient the awakened remain. Stripped of illusions, they become almost impossible to control. History remembers them as saints, rebels, philosophers, those who saw through the veil. They carried occult teachings disguised as parables, poems and/or riddles, seeding humanity with hints of the hidden sun. This endurance terrifies rulers because even if 1 in 1,000 survives the fire, that one can ignite revolutions of the spirit. And revolutions of the spirit are harder to crush than any army. So the consequences of awakening are both peril and promise, madness or mastery, exile or enlightenment. Yet the path does not end there, for beyond the black sun lies another threshold, one guarded not by illusions but by beings older than empires, entities that feed or guide, that terrify even the strongest. And these presences, hidden beyond the eclipse, are the next veil to lift. Beyond the burning void of the black sun, seekers often reported encountering presences, entities neither human nor bound by earthly empires. Some described them as guardians, others as devourers, beings forged from the same inverted light. To meet them was to stand before reflections of cosmic law itself. They did not bow to kings or priests, nor answer to any secret society. Instead, they moved in harmony with laws older than creation, laws elites could never rewrite. This is why rulers trembled. These entities were beyond control. Accounts from shamans and mystics speak of shadowed guides who appeared during initiations. Some offered visions, teaching esoteric knowledge through symbols and paradoxes. Others tested the seeker with terror, feeding on fear until only courage remained. In every case, the occult symbolism was consistent. Behind the eclipse, consciousness is not alone. Forces move there, forces that acknowledge no empire. To stand before them was both initiation and judgment. The seeker left marked, forever changed, carrying whispers of forbidden gnosis within. Imagine the fear this inspired in those who govern by fear. If humans could access entities unbound by political or religious power, what use would they have for priests, kings, or governments? The esoteric truth of such encounters undermines the entire machinery of control. For elites, the nightmare is simple. If the people listen to these cosmic voices, they stop listening to rulers. And so, stories of these beings were twisted into demons, monsters, or hallucinations, designed to keep seekers far from the occult mysteries. Yet many traditions spoke with reverence of these encounters. Gnostics hinted at archons and aeons, forces that shaped and tested the soul. Indigenous shamans described animal spirits or underworld guides, guardians of initiation. Alchemists hinted at black angels, luminous in shadow. Whether terrifying or protective, their role was the same, to guide the initiate deeper into spiritual awakening. Their existence suggests that the black sun is not just symbol, but threshold, a doorway to realms where hidden forces dwell. But such contact comes with peril. Not every entity seeks to guide. Some feed, some deceive. This is why initiates were warned to approach with humility and strength. The dark alchemy of these encounters could either refine or destroy. Those who failed to discern might lose themselves, mistaking predators for teachers. This ambiguity terrified rulers who could not regulate or legislate the unseen. Better to brand all entities as evil than to admit humanity could meet powers greater than empires. Thus, the elite conspiracies buried these truths beneath superstition. The paradox is that these beings cannot be bribed, manipulated, or threatened. Unlike earthly powers, they recognize only inner sovereignty. A seeker stripped bare by the black sun stands before them with nothing but essence, and it is that essence they measure. Some return with gifts, visions, clarity, healing. Others return broken, consumed by forces too vast to integrate. Either way, the mystical symbolism of the encounter remains. Beyond the eclipse lies judgment no emperor can escape. And here lies the deepest irony. While elites publicly demonize the black sun, some secretly worship these entities, seeking alliances with what they fear most. Hidden temples and bloodlines have long whispered to these forces, bargaining for scraps of their power. Which brings us to the unsettling truth. The secret cult of the Black Sun may already exist within the very halls of power, feeding on both devotion and dread. Whispers of a hidden cult have haunted history, suggesting that even among the elites, some secretly revere the Black Sun. While publicly branding it heresy, in private they gather in temples, beneath vaults carved with occult symbolism, tracing patterns of the eclipse on stone floors. These hidden factions walk a razor's edge. They fear the annihilation it brings, yet they crave the power buried in its shadows. To them, the forbidden gnosis of the Black Sun is too tempting to ignore, and so, in secrecy, they worship what they dare not name in daylight. Legends speak of castles in Europe where the Black Sun was carved into granite, of orders whose rituals mirrored the stages of dark alchemy. Some sought domination, bending the symbol toward empire. Others pursued esoteric knowledge, yearning for liberation but unable to sever themselves from politics. This paradox birthed cults within cults, bloodlines guarding hidden knowledge while pretending loyalty to crowns and crosses. Outwardly, they condemned the Black Sun as evil. Inwardly, they painted its sigil across their most sacred halls. Consider how power thrives in contradiction. Elites preach salvation through outer suns, religion, science, economy, while secretly invoking the inner sun. They present themselves as protectors of order, yet behind closed doors they study occult secrets too dangerous for the public. This duality is the mark of parasitic power, to consume truth in secret while feeding lies to the masses. Such duplicity has preserved their empires for centuries, but also cursed them. For in chasing the Black Sun without surrender, they summon its fire without wisdom. Stories surface in fragments, manuscripts describing secret rituals at eclipses, paintings layered with symbols only initiates could read, rumors of leaders guided by shadowed visions. While skeptics dismiss these as fantasy, the pattern is too consistent. Across cultures and centuries, the Black Sun attracts hidden worshippers. It is never erased, only disguised. And each time, the elites who court its force walk the same tightrope, using occult powers without undergoing true initiation. Their arrogance often leads to ruin, while the symbol itself survives untouched. This hidden cult is not unified. Some factions revere the Black Sun as a destroyer, others as a liberator. Some thirst for empire, others for transcendence. But all agree on one truth: it cannot be ignored. Their secrecy fuels conspiracy. Their rituals leave echoes in architecture, myths and symbols scattered across history. If you know what to look for, hidden symbols, spirals, eclipses, you see their fingerprints everywhere. And with each discovery you begin to wonder, how close are we still living under their shadow? The danger is that these cults blur the line between fear and reverence. By half-worshipping, half-exploiting the Black Sun, they distort its esoteric truth. What should be an initiation into freedom becomes a tool for domination. And yet, their secrecy proves the elite's deepest fear, that the symbol holds more power than any empire. For why would they hide what they claim is meaningless? Why preserve in silence what they publicly condemn? Their silence speaks louder than words, and this brings us to the final veil, that perhaps the Black Sun is not an external cult object at all, but a mirror of the abyss within each soul. If even elites cannot escape its pull, then what does it reveal about the true nature of power? What happens when humanity stops fearing and starts reflecting in that abyss? The answer lies in the closing vision. The Black Sun not as an emblem of rulers, but as the end of borrowed light and the rebirth of true sovereignty. The Black Sun has always been painted as something external, a star, a cult symbol, a forbidden light. Yet those who dared to stare into it long enough realized a disturbing truth. It is not merely out there, it is within. The abyss that terrifies kings and priests is the same abyss that lives in every human heart. To confront the Black Sun occult is to confront yourself, stripped of masks, stories, and illusions. This is why the elites dread it. Once humanity reflects in that abyss, their borrowed power dissolves into nothing. Look closely and you will see how this reflection works. The outer sun governs appearances, but the inner sun reveals essence. When a person stares into the abyss of the Black Sun, they see the collapse of false light, wealth, status, dogma. All the scaffolding of empire crumbles. What remains is sovereignty, the unshakable center no tyrant can touch. The esoteric truth here is radical. Real power has never belonged to rulers. It belongs to those who dare to awaken. And once that realization spreads, no army can stop it. This abyss is not comfortable. It shows you your weaknesses, your fears, your shadows. But within those shadows lies hidden treasure. The alchemy transformation of the Black Sun is not about avoiding darkness, but using it as the raw material for growth. Just as alchemists turned lead into gold, so the Seeker turns despair into freedom. The elites know this formula well. That's why they invert it. They flood the world with fear, hoping people never learn to transmute it into liberation. Examples are everywhere. Think of revolutions where oppressed people suddenly saw through the lies of their rulers. Think of personal awakenings, when someone refuses to play by systems of shame or control. Each is a glimpse of the forbidden gnosis the Black Sun embodies. These awakenings do not require temples or rituals. They require only reflection, honest, brutal, transformative reflection. That is why the occult symbolism of the abyss has been so carefully hidden, because once seen, it cannot be unseen. The elites have tried to bury the Black Sun beneath layers of myth and fear. They painted it as satanic, destructive, chaotic. But destruction is only half the truth. The mystical symbolism shows it also as the womb of rebirth. To face it is to end borrowed power and claim true sovereignty. It is the death of empire and the birth of self. This is the revelation they could never allow to spread, that every human carries a cosmic mystery within, a hidden sun that no ruler can eclipse. And so, the abyss reflects not just individual truth but collective destiny. What would happen if humanity looked into the Black Sun together? If billions realized the occult powers they once feared were the very keys to liberation? The elites would no longer hide behind thrones or pulpits. Their empires, built on false light, would collapse like shadows at dawn. This is why they fear the symbol with such obsession, because it mirrors back the fragility of their dominion. But here is the lingering question, the open loop that no ruler can close. What happens when you stare into the abyss long enough and the abyss stares back, not with terror, but with recognition? What happens when humanity accepts the reflection and rises with the esoteric philosophy of sovereignty in hand? The answer lies not in myths nor in temples, but in the next step we take. And that next step begins with a question. Why, after all this time, do the elites still fear the Black Sun? So now you know why the elites have always feared the Black Sun, not because it destroys, but because it liberates. The real question is, what will you do with this knowledge? Will you keep looking at the outer sun, bound to the cycles of illusion? Or will you dare to face the abyss, to discover the inner sun that no empire can extinguish? Ask yourself, what illusions still control your life? Which fears still hold you back from stepping into your own sovereignty? And what might change if you stopped running from the darkness and started using it as fuel for transformation? The answer isn't written in books or temples. It is written in you. The elites tremble because they know this truth. The moment humanity reflects in the Black Sun, their borrowed power collapses. That moment begins when one person, then another, then millions, decide to awaken. Could you be one of them? I want to hear from you. Do you believe the Black Sun is only a symbol, or is it something more? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this conversation belongs to all of us. And if you're ready to go deeper into forbidden gnosis and uncover more occult mysteries that elites don't want you to know, then make sure you subscribe to the channel, activate notifications, and join our circle of seekers. There is so much more ahead, and you don't want to miss what comes next.